Welcome, welcome, everybody. As you're coming in, please tell us, type in the chat I'd love to know your name, and I'd love to know where you're joining us from. Hi, Natalie. Hi, Angie. Hello. Awesome. Lots of local Atlanta people. Oh, hello, Amy. Welcome, everybody. We're just going to give everybody just one more minute before we officially start. But as you're joining, please tell us your name and tell us where you're coming from, or I wouldn't say calling in from, but zooming in from. Hi, Phil. Hi, Cade. Wonderful. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us, for taking time out of your busy days to join us in talking about resilience. It is a topic that is incredibly pertinent and incredibly important, I think, as we're navigating very sort of changing times. Resilience is something that is talked about all the time from lots of different perspectives, but I think we tend to assume that resilience is either something we have or we don't have, and we don't often think about, well, how do we grow our resilience, right? What can we do to actually improve our resilience? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. As we get started, I'd love to hear from our participants. What do you think resilience is, and what does it mean? What does it mean to you personally to be resilient? Okay, being strong, I like that. Ability to make changes quickly. Yeah. Being flexible, bouncing back, handling change, being strong and nimble. Oh, ability to thrive. Yeah. I like that. Rebound from a setback after a setback. Endurance. That's a great one. Endurance. Yeah. Great. Staying productive, being mentally strong in the face of a challenge. I like that as well. Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your thoughts. And if you have thoughts as I'm going through our presentation today, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring the chat as I'm going through. I want this to be, as much as possible, to be an interactive conversation, not just me talking at you, but for us to have a conversation together as much as possible in this sort of Zoom webinar world. My name is Vicki Abelson. I'm a senior consultant with TurkNet Leadership Group, and we're here to talk about resilience in a rapidly changing world. I will say, so this presentation, and I think you probably heard as you came on, is being recorded. And so we'll share this with you tomorrow or the day after if you are not able to stay for all of it, or if you missed something. And so we will share all of this with you. You've probably also already received a little bit of a worksheet with a space to take notes if that's how you process information better. We wanted to make sure that we are able to support you in all of the different ways that you learn. So, resilience in a rapidly changing world. Oh. Okay, so a little bit of background. 2020 was obviously a very challenging year, but for many leaders and for many organizations, it really was not much of an anomaly, right? Over the last decade, we have seen so many advances in technology, regardless of the industry that you're in. We have seen market consolidation and integration also in lots of different industries. I come from a healthcare background where that happened all the time, lots of small practices joining big practices, etc. We saw changes in what employees and leaders expect out of themselves, out of organizations, out of their hiring practices, from benefits, all of those things, right? Even if you just think about last year, we moved from, a lot of organizations moved from never being able to work remote to only working remote. And so all of that is changing really on a dime. We've transitioned to working remotely, and we have this sort of bigger focus on work-life integration. And we talk a lot about work-life balance, but I really, especially now, really think about kind of work-life integration, where our work, because of technology, because of location, it's sort of never ending, right? And our lives are never ending. We wear so many different hats, and oftentimes we wear those hats at exactly the same time, that it's impossible to say, oh, now I'm just in the office, now I'm just at home, because oftentimes we're doing all of those things at the same time. And I'm curious, as I continue, what changes have you seen in your industries over the last year that have been challenging to go through? Remote work, yeah, that's a big one. Newly hired, ooh, I'm sorry, I can't speak. Candidates not being committed, working remotely. Yeah. Care delivery, digitization, that's a hard word to say. Yeah, that's a really big one. Yeah, okay. Thank you all for sharing. Oh, ghosting, no showing up for interviews on day one. Ooh, that's a big one. I really like this one. When you say general confusion and uncertainty about what's next, I want to come back to that in a minute. That's a really important one. So all of these changes, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, has led to employee burnout. It has led to leader burnout, change management fatigue, right? We are all tired of every single day. There's something new. There's something new we have to learn. There's something new we have to adapt to. There's something new that we have to expect. It has led to high employee turnover, right? We've all have heard the term that is being talked about recently is the great, I forget, oh my gosh, it completely just left my head, but everybody leaving the workforce to go find other jobs, better jobs. Thank you, great resignation. Thank you very much. One day it was like right at the tip of my tongue. People are looking for better opportunities because their current employees might not be meeting where they are. They might not be allowing them to have the same kinds of flexibility that they're wanting and or needing for their families, for their lives. It has led to customer dissatisfaction, right? Employee dissatisfaction oftentimes leads to customer dissatisfaction, or because we're not able to meet our customers' demands or expectations in a timely manner. All of this has led to low morale. And then, of course, because of all of these things, it leads to leadership and team building challenges. I have heard time and time again over the last year where a person has started a brand new job and they have not been able to meet their coworkers or their leaders in person, and they're having a really hard time integrating and onboarding during this time, regardless of whether they're sort of a line employee or a leader. Isolation, yes, that's a big one. Thank you. Tsunami of turnover, I like that term. So many things have been hitting us over and over and over again over the past year, and unfortunately will continue to do so. Our resilience has been tested again and again and again, and is going to continue to be tested. So what is resilience? I already asked you guys for your opinion, for your definitions of resilience, and there's no one right answer, right? Of course, of what resilience is. This is just a definition of resilience that I want to share with you. Resilience is our capacity to recover quickly from difficult situations. And I want to caveat the word difficult, and I'm going to come back to it in a minute. It's our ability to adapt in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or other significant sources of threat. Resilience is not a personality trait. We can absolutely build it and strengthen it like any other muscle. It's not an ability to stay away from stressful situations. But building resilience takes time and intentionality. So the reason that I wanted to say that I want to come back to the word difficult in difficult situations is difficult is one of those words that means different things to different people. And so a difficult situation can be something that is, just like the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Incredibly difficult. Something that is impacting all of us, and something that's very, very big. But difficult situations can also be minor situations, right? It could be your coworker not emailing you back in a timely manner. It could be your boss having unrealistic expectations. It could be your team constantly sort of under delivering or under communicating or whatever it is. Difficult situations could be tiny little things that add up over time that test our resilience again, sort of over and over and over again. Things that are constant, things that are nagging. Think of it as sort of like a pebble in your shoe. It's not a huge deal, but it is incredibly annoying, and I'm sorry, I can't speak. And it keeps you from being able to walk forward and being able to walk fast and efficiently. So think about difficult situations sort of from both of those perspectives. I think sometimes, and tell me if you think what your perspective on this is. Sometimes when we think about difficult situations and when we think about resilience, we don't give ourselves the credit for all of those tiny little things, the pebbles in the shoes. We really give ourselves credit only for the big boulders we have to carry up the mountain, not the pebbles in our shoes. And I really want to give ourselves and our teams permission here to sort of feel that pebble in your shoe and acknowledge that that's painful. And that is really hurting my ability to function effectively and to be a happy and resilient person, employee, leader, what have you, going forward. How does that concept of sort of pebble in your shoe versus big boulder, how does that resonate for you? What do you think of that? All right, I'm going to keep moving forward. All right, so some practical steps to start building the muscle. And like I said before, with the definition of resilience, these are not all of the ways in which to build resilience. These are some of the ways in which to build resilience. And these are not all things that you have to go out and do all tomorrow. These are things that you can start thinking about breaking up into small pieces and doing a little bit every single day. Resilience, and I said this before, it's like building a muscle. You're not going to become resilient if you don't consider yourself to be resilient now, or if you took our resilience quiz prior to joining this webinar. If you were not resilient, you're not all of a sudden going to become super resilient tomorrow. I wish you could be. I wish I could be, but unfortunately, that's not the case. What is the case is kind of like push-ups. The more that you practice these skills, the stronger your resilience is going to be. The better, the more adaptable you're going to be. And the better you're going to be able to pick yourself up and dust yourself off. The way I liken this is, if you've ever have seen a toddler learning how to run, they fall, and they pick themselves up again and they keep on running. That's really the goal of these tips and tricks that we're about to go through, is to help you channel that inner toddler that's learning how to run. You're going to fall, and that's okay. But how are you able to get up? And how are you able to dust yourself off? And how are you able to keep on running? So some practical steps to start building that muscle. As I'm going through these, what I really want you to think about is sort of on a scale of 1 to 10, how well am I doing these things today? And if that number is not as high as you want it to be, how can you make improvements on that? What tangible actionable step can you make in order to do that? And then also, how will you hold yourself accountable to that, right? Accountability is incredibly crucial to these things. Whenever we go through, through trainings and webinars like this, sometimes we kind of hear all of this information and it's really nice, but I really want you to think about, how am I going to implement this today? And how am I going to hold myself accountable to this today? So number one, and there, I'm going to say, I said number one, but they're in no particular order. So number one, prioritize relationships, both at work and at home. This is more important now than ever, right? I don't have to tell you that for many of us, and I think somebody said this earlier, this year and a half has been incredibly isolating. We are working at home. Our coworkers are no longer here. Even if we are working with our families just down the hall, we're isolated from the people that we used to spend our 9-to-5s with, right? And it can be incredibly hard. So what can we do to build relationships or continue building those relationships with people in our work environments, and also in our home environments, right? Can we have family dinner? Can we have a virtual Zoom lunch with our coworker that we normally would have gone on lunch with together to the local restaurant, but now we can't do that. So maybe we can have lunch together over Zoom while eating our sandwiches, whatever it is. But what can you do to kind of prioritize those interpersonal relationships so that your work is not just, head down, get your work done, and then go home, but really building those interpersonal connections with people. This is particularly important, and this is where I'm really going to challenge you, is if you have started in a brand new organization or in a brand new role in the past year and a half, or if you know somebody that you work with that has just started in your organization in the past year and a half, reach out to them. Start building a relationship with them. It's not easy. It's not always comfortable to, meeting new people generally is not always that comfortable or that easy, but reach out to them, see how you can help them, how they can help you, or just get to know them, especially for those of us that are brand new in new organizations or are working with people where they are brand new people. That really can be incredibly isolating. And if without building those relationships, they're going to be much more likely to leave because they don't feel that interpersonal connection to your organization. Join groups of like-minded people. That could be a networking group, that could be a learning group, that could be a mahjong group or playing soccer, whatever it is. But whenever, a neighborhood group, join people that have the same interests, maybe the same mindsets, or are working on the same things or curious about those same things. It's a building on prioritizing relationships. We think that, especially in this environment, it could be hard to meet new people and build relationships. And it is, in so many different ways, but there are ways to be creative and to build relationships and to still keep learning and to still keep sort of having fun and doing some of those things, even if it's, sort of a pickup soccer game or what have you. Take care of your physical body. I'm sure you've heard this. I'm sure you've heard this said before, and I'm going to say it again, but we have to keep moving, right? One of the things that's going to help our emotional selves, our physical selves, our mental selves is moving our body, right? It could just be a quick walk around the block or a walk around your house. It could be an actual workout, whatever it is, whatever it means for you to take care of your physical body. do those things. One of the things that is important in taking, or it can be a factor in taking care of your physical body, is when we move our bodies, that's actually a very good way of reducing stress. When we're experiencing a stressful situation, even when that stressful situation is gone, going out for a walk or a run, or whatever it is that helps you move, can help us remove all of that adrenaline and cortisol that's going through our bodies when we are experiencing stress. Take care of your mind. Do what you're doing today. Join webinars, learn something new, read a book, journal. It could be anything. Go sit outside and look at nature. Anything that gives your mind either a break or allows your mind to grow and sort of build those neural connections. Avoid negative outlets where possible. This one's hard. This one's really hard. I'm telling this to myself too, but this one's really hard, right? The news can be really scary. Social media, all of those things, right? These things can be really scary. And this is one where I always sort of, I don't want to tell you to shut it all down, right? I don't want to tell you to never listen to the news or read the news or watch the news or shut down all social media. I don't want you to do that. I want being well informed. Those things are incredibly important as well. But know that if there are some outlets that all they do is cause stress for you, maybe take a break. Maybe say, this is going to be a social media free weekend for me, or a news free weekend for you, or for me, or maybe this specific commentator or news station or Instagram or whatever it is, maybe I'm not going to listen to that person right now, because all it does is give me angst. And knowing those things, giving yourself permission to say, for right now, I'm going to take care of myself by avoiding some of this. Helping others, right? This maybe goes without saying, but particularly when things are challenging, what can we do to help other people? Whether it is joining a philanthropy, or donating to a food bank, or there's so many different ways to help others. Maybe it's just helping a coworker who's having a hard time with a project. It can be a small thing, it could be a big thing. But helping others absolutely helps get us out of ourselves and helps us to think about sort of the broader, bigger picture. One of the things that has been incredible for me to witness, and especially for those of you in Atlanta, I'm sure you have seen, there have been so many sort of organizations that have popped up over the last year that have been focused on feeding people, or helping take care of people that are not able to take care of themselves through this pandemic, and that has given, to sort of the next point is, that has given a lot of people a purpose when they feel like maybe either their jobs are no longer sort of aligned with their greater purpose, or whatever, or maybe they just needed an additional purpose while things were sort of so complicated and so hesitant. And that finding purpose can be really, really important. I think one of the things that I have seen also is that people's purpose has changed over the last year or so. What they thought their purpose was before might no longer be their purpose. People have either left the workforce because they're wanting to spend more time with their families, or they have gone back into the workforce because they find that they don't want to do homeschool, or they need to earn more money in order to be able to support their families, whatever it is. But that purpose might have shifted for us over the past year and a half or 2 years. And it's okay to say, my purpose used to be this, but either this is my new purpose, or I don't really know what my purpose is, and I'm gonna go and try and figure that out. But having that purpose can be incredibly important in helping to build our resilience. Because again, to sort of go back to my analogy before about the running toddler, you kind of have to know what you're running to. And knowing what you're running to is part of that purpose. And to that end, also keeping things in perspective, right? That pebble, it might be incredibly annoying and it might really be hurtful, but it's just a pebble and we can take it out and we can move forward. When our resilience is low, when we have been stressed out and burnt out to the max, keeping things in perspective can be incredibly, incredibly hard. And so that's why we want to work on all of those other things, because it's going to allow us to keep things in perspective a lot better. And in fact, I would say keeping things in perspective is one of the indicators of strong resilience. Embracing change. This one's hard too. And this one's probably one that we're really much more familiar with right now, but change is inevitable, right? It's just going to happen, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. But all of us have probably over the last year and a half have had to have a big major work change, or have had flights change, or have had family trips change, or whatever it is, school change, work, all of the things. Everything has changed and has changed again and has changed again. And so in knowing that change is going to happen, and finding, if not peace, but finding sort of like knowing that it's going to happen, acceptance of change is incredibly important. And then the last one is also one that's very, very hard for many, many of us: asking for help. For those of us in maybe our parents or in leadership positions or anything, it can be incredibly hard to ask for help, because we feel like we should know all the answers and we should be able to do things on our own, because we have either gotten to a certain level in our careers, or we have certain titles, or we have certain responsibilities. And so we should be able to do things on our own, and we shouldn't need help, and we should know all the things. But we're still people, and we absolutely need help. And we are absolutely allowed to ask for help when we need it. And in fact, I would say ask for help before you need it, because asking for help when you do need it can actually be really, really hard, because then there's ego wrapped up in that, there's sort of self-worth wrapped up in that. But asking for help for smaller things that might not be quite as emotionally wrapped up in, whatever your priorities are, can help build muscle and can help build practice in asking for help for the really, really big things. So I just threw a lot of information at you, but I'm curious, what are your thoughts on these? Are these some of the things that you think can be helpful in building your resilience? And also, how will you implement some of these things in your week this week? In balance. I like that, Todd. Yeah. Up on my... Okay. Oh, I like that. Don't push the river, go with the flow. I like that. Don't push the river. Remembering I can't be everything to everyone. I can be something for someone. Yeah, that's a really big one. That kind of takes the pressure off a little bit, right? To that, like, I can't be everything, all things to all people, but I can be something to someone. That kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. I like that. Yeah. So we talked about a lot of things today, but as always, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Building resilience takes skill and takes time. and can be really, really overwhelming, but really, really possible. We created with Turn Leadership Group, we created an in-depth 3-session workshop entitled Bounce Back, Build Your Resilience. And in that workshop, we'll kind of go into all of these things and so much more a lot deeper. We'll talk about sort of the hidden dangers to our resilience. We'll talk a little bit more about what resilience is and it's not. We'll talk about the 7 C's of resilience and how to immediately benefit from them. You'll have recorded workshops as well as actionable, tangible homework to be able to take between you each session. If you have questions, if you want to learn more, these are all of the dates, but you can reach out to us, you can reach out to Tino, and he will be happy to share more with you. But kind of as we're moving closer to the end, I'd love to know from you, what was your biggest takeaway from our webinar today and from our resilience conversation today? Oh, Keisha, thank you so much for sharing that the small stuff can build up during these times and that the small stuff build up to be the big stuff. Thank you for sharing that. Having someone to help having someone to help talk to can absolutely really help. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Bill, you're right, how important it is to take care of our mental health. Absolutely, absolutely. It can be kind of taboo to talk about, but it's absolutely incredibly important. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, to learn with us, and to be vulnerable with us and sharing some of your thoughts and some of your feedback. We have really, really greatly, I personally have enjoyed this conversation. Oh, I want to be able to say, work. And before we close out, does anybody have any questions for us, either about what we talked about today, about the workshop, or anything that comes to mind? Oh, let's see. Somebody has. And JP, if you can see that, I can't scroll up on my chat, so I can't see if anybody asked the question before.
Hey, no problem. I'll read out some of these questions to you. So Phil Williams asked, how important is it to take care of your mental health?
How important is it what? I'm sorry?
To take care of your mental health.
How important is it to take care of your mental health? Well, I'm probably biased, but I think it is incredibly, incredibly important to take care of your mental health. Without taking care of our mental health, we are absolutely not able to take care of anything else, right? We're not able to take care of our physical bodies. We're not able to take care of our families. We're not able to take care of our work and the people that we're responsible for at work. It's the analogy of when you're on a plane, you have to put your mask on first before you put the mask on, a child or an elderly person sitting next to you. It is taking care of your mental health is incredibly important.
All right. And we have another question from Janet, who says she's in a position of leadership at work and recently has been failing to sleep because she's constantly thinking of tasks that she's not completed. What can she do to control this?
That is a great question. That is a great question, Janet. Thank you so much for sharing. So I have many tips and tricks that I like to share on this. One of the things that I am a big personal proponent for is the concept of morning pages, and I say morning pages, but you can do this at any time. Is you take a notebook, and actually I have one right here. This is how much of a big proponent of this I am, and you sort of brain dump all of the things that are top of mind for you at the transitions of your day. It could be at the beginning of your day, as you're starting your work, or it could be as you're ending your work and transitioning into personal time, family time, what have you. But getting all of the things out on paper every single day, not just when you're burnt out, not just when you're stressed out, but every single day, that gives you the ability to process through your thoughts and allows to create some mental bandwidth to be able to hopefully sleep. There's a lot of other things. If Janet, if you want to email me, I'm happy to talk to you about this, because I can talk about this all day.
Yeah, sure. And we can you can follow up with Vicki's email when we send out follow-ups to if you want to reach out to Vicki, feel free to talk about any of this. She's happy to do it, as you can tell.
Yeah, the Calm app, I like that. Meditation also works. Meditation is hard. I will say, like, that's one of my personal aspirations. I want to be a person that can meditate. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm working on it. JP, were there any other questions that I missed?
Not that I see. If anyone else has any questions they'd like to ask, feel free. I know mindfulness is very talked about today. Do you have anything to add about that? How can mindfulness be kind of brought into the picture of resilience, and how that can help us?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mindfulness means, I think, just like resilience, mindfulness means different things to different people. If we talk about mindfulness from the perspective of being present on sort of one thing at a time, that's the thing that I always try to encourage myself and my clients, of what can we do in order to just be focused on just one thing at a time, whether it's turning off notifications on our phone, whether it's turning off our email, whether it's being able to go for a walk, or just having silent, quiet time. What can we do that's going to be able to allow us just to focus on just one thing at a time? I think can really help build some of that mindfulness. Kathy, I like this question. I did see this one. What do the best leaders do to help their people become more resilient? This is a great question. So this is one that I think a lot of people you might not like the answer to this question, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it anyway. We have to create space for our employees to implement some of these tactics themselves also at work. These things can't just be for us. They have to be for our people as well. So whether it is sort of pushing down if they have productivity metrics, pushing down their productivity metrics a little bit more, so that they have space to make connections with people, so they have space to learn and grow, so making it a safe space to ask for help when they need it, making it a safe space for them to be able to go and take a walk around the block when they need it, right? Giving them an opportunity to implement these tips and tricks while they're at work, in addition to when they are at home, I think can be incredibly helpful.
Looks like we have a question from Cheryl, who asks, as a leader, you identify your resilience has led to burnout or compassion fatigue. How do you get back on track?
That's a great question. You identify your resilience has led to burnout or compassion fatigue. How do you get back on track? So that's a great question. So this is where we talked about kind of taking care of yourself, identifying the things that help you pour back into yourself so that you can pour back into others, whether it is taking a day off, right? So taking a PTO day, an actual PTO day, when you don't check back in with your office, but actually take a real break, even if you don't go anywhere, right? Even if you just sit in your backyard and read a book or watch a movie, whatever it is, whatever that allows you to actually turn off so that you can take care of yourself is a big one. It's easy to say, leave your work at work, but that's no longer possible, right? That's not necessarily a luxury that a lot of us have anymore. So But what can we do to take actual breaks when we're not checking our email, we're not answering text messages from our employees or from our bosses, but actual breaks to take care of ourselves. Yeah, I like this. Desiree says have a me time daily, and that can mean different things for you, right? It can mean like take a walk around the block. That was something that was important for me when I was working in a corporate environment. I took a lunchtime walk every single day just to get out of the office. But how can we take a break so that we can take care of ourselves, so that we can ultimately also take care of others?
I have another great question from Phil. The procrastination gate is a big avoidance tool. How important is it to address these pebble issues when they surface?
That's a great question. So I would actually challenge you here, and I would say a lot of times we probably already know what those pebble issues are, right? We know that it could be, Steve on our team, I always pick on Steve. Steve on our team is going to be that person that is constantly going to be responding late to us, or is not going to be turning his work in on time, or it's going to be late to meetings, whatever it is. Identifying the problem, sort of the trigger, as early as possible before it becomes a pattern, before it potentially ruins a relationship, if it has something to do with a specific person. Identifying the actual content of the problem as early as possible and taking care of it as early as possible, taking that pebble out before it multiplies, can be incredibly helpful. It is hard to do, right? Because it's easy to avoid those teeny tiny pebbles. It's easy to avoid that one forgotten email, or that one time that the person was late when you needed them to be on time. It's easy to sweep that under the rug. But when you know that it's bound to sort of become a bigger issue, try and nip it in the bud as efficiently and as kindly as possible, because it's going to get worse for you and for the other person. Does that answer your question? What else? What other questions did we have?
You gave a resounding yes on that.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you.
I'll add one little tidbit here before I wanted to ask you one little tidbit here before we come to a close out here. How we got to look at this from an organizational perspective too, right? So I think you might have mentioned this before, but how can organizations best support their employees in terms of this, right? How can they create environments that allow employees to live out these sorts of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'm probably biased, but I think that creating opportunities to learn about these things, but more than just learn, create the opportunities for them to implement the things that they learn. We all have sat in workshops that our organizations have, put on for us, and they've been great. And, we've been sort of all motivated and have learned, and we're like, this was a great hour of our time that we spent. But then we kind of look around and like, what do we do with this information? So what can we do when we do provide opportunities for them to learn? And this workshop is a great example of this. So if you have your teams and your employees sign up for this worksheet, we will provide you opportunities to implement that. But how can you build then that implementation time into their day or into their week, so that they can take their learning and actually implement the things that they're learning and test it out and try it out, and have opportunities to fail, but then pick themselves back up and try again until their muscle is significantly stronger, right? It's like going to the gym. It's doing push-ups. You're gonna be able to do one push-up one day. You can be able to do 5 push-ups the next day, but then maybe 3 again. Like, how do you provide an opportunity for them to learn, to implement, and to fail in a safe way, so that they can continue learning and that they can continue building that resilience. Yeah, I like Phil, what you said. We have to create opportunities for transfer of learning. That's right. So how can you take what you've learned today, and how can you share that with your people? Think about that as you're implementing it in your life. How can you help your people learn and implement as well? Yeah. Thank you for that perspective.
Well, we've reached the 45-minute mark, Vicki, and this has been wonderful, truly.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you everybody for joining. It has been such a wonderful pleasure to speak with you today, or read with you today. Thank you so much for your openness and vulnerability, and sharing your thoughts and sharing your questions. I greatly appreciate your time today. Thanks, everyone.